This event is a partnership between the Alliance Francaise and the Minnesota 8th Air Force Historical Society. My name is Stephen Anderson, and I have the honor of being the president of the 8th Air Force Historical Society. Our veterans love our country. They defend those that cannot defend themselves, and today we're going to honor one of those veterans. But before we do that, I want to point out there are 3 other 8th Air Force World War II veterans in the room. Would they please stand? Les Schrenk, John Clark, Jim Kangas. And while they're standing, for the other veterans in the room, please stand. That's you. Thank you for your service. Reverend Beal will lead us in an invocation. You may remain seated.
Mindful that we Americans pledge to be a nation under God and claim our trust to be in God, let us unite together in prayer. Not because it's customary for us to do so, but because it's absolutely necessary. May we pray. Our Heavenly Father, which means that we as brothers and sisters are all members of the same family of God, we remember before you this day the men and women of our armed forces who lived and the many who died, that freedom from the fear and reality of tyranny may be our experience today. As we reflect upon the evil in Europe that murdered millions during World War II, we give thanks for the victory over evil's oppression by the unified allies of the United States, England, France, and Russia. May we, in this moment, rededicate ourselves to the highest ideals of our fallen comrades in arms, and to be used as instruments of your peace in a world that remains all too familiar with war. We humbly pray this, not only among nations, but among and within ourselves. Your sacred word says, render honor to whom honor is due. And so today, we are blessed to witness a long-awaited honor being bestowed on one of your children, Jim Rasmussen. We are grateful, O Lord, for your watchful care over Jim's 32 wartime missions and his ensuing decades of peacetime patriotism. May the best of Jim's characteristics be multiplied by those of us who have come to know him, whom you have created, O God, and have said, well done. Amen.
Now I'd like to introduce Colonel Don Patley.
Thank you very much, Steve. I want to give a tribute to Steve Anderson for all he's done to revitalize this 8th Air Force historical group here in Minnesota. It had dwindled down to just a table full, and now you see a whole room paying tribute to the service of the World War II veterans. But of course, the 8th Air Force is still a vital part of our national defense item. Thank you so much, Steve. The relationship between France and the United States is deep and long-lasting. France was the first country that recognized the United States when it gained its independence as a nation. Those of you that live here in Minnesota, Minnesota was part of the Louisiana Purchase. Of course, the Louisiana Purchase was something that President Jefferson did in 1802, and I'm not a historian, so I may have a date off there a little bit, but Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Purchase from France in 1802, and we're now part of that. One of the lesser known facts, everybody knows about Lewis and Clark exploring the Northwest, but few people recognize a guy named Zebulon Pike who came up the Mississippi River to find the source and ended up spending 2 winters, 2 harsh winters, living in tents up here. The United States, of course, joined France in World War I, the Great War, the war that was going to end all wars, and of course that didn't happen. The veterans that we have here today, 4 of them that joined with France and were part of the World War II victory, as Chaplain Beale mentioned in the victory of World War II. I actually had a personal experience. My active duty in the early 60s, I was actually an advisor to a French Air Force missile unit in the Fritz zone of Germany. And as far as relationships go, I want to recognize, Christina, would you stand up? Christina is the director of the Alliance Francaise in Minnesota, and she has been such a wonderful partner on so many projects. Christina, thank you so much. I will tell you that we're working on a project. Mark Copeland, who's at the table here, is working with Alliance Francaise to do a June 6th program at Alliance Francaise, which you'll hear more about. And I also want to mention that I'm involved in the World War II History Roundtable, and we will be spending Memorial Day at the cemetery in Omaha Beach Cemetery in France on, I think, May 30th, or the end of May anyway. And I also want to recognize Les Schrenk. Les is part of a group that is actually going to be going to France. He's part of an American Airlines flight. It's going to take 60 veterans. And I just heard from the consul that Delta and the other American Airlines are all taking charter flights of World War II veterans back to France for that June 6th ceremony. Les, you'll represent us well, I know. But today is to honor Jim Rasmussen. I know that Gabrielle, would you come forward? Gabrielle has a letter from the governor of Minnesota to honor this, and so I'm going to yield the platform here to Gabrielle. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. First of all, this is an honor for me, not only because I'm a French citizen and I grew up with my grandparents, that they were both Parisians and they both fought in World War II. So definitely this is an honor for me to be here, not only representing the government of Minnesota and the governor in this case. He has sent a letter for Mr. Rasmussen saying, on behalf of the state of Minnesota, I'm delighted to extend warm greetings and congratulations to you on being bestowed the French Legion of Honor. We are incredibly grateful for your outstanding service and accomplishments. It is with sincere regrets that I was unable to join the presentation ceremony today, March 15, for this remarkable occasion. Minnesota and France share a long history of collaboration and engagement on many fronts. We highly value the state's exceptional relationship with the Consul General Yannick Tagan and the government of France, and in particular, their ongoing dedication to honoring Minnesota's World War II veterans. Again, congratulations and my very best wishes. Governor Tim Walz. Thank you.
Gabrielle, here's Jim. Jim, here's the award. Do you want to take pictures? Gabrielle, stand behind Jim for the...
Great.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. The honor today is a special one, and it's special because we have the Consul General for the country of France, for the Republic of France, coming up from Chicago to make this award. And Jim, that shows how special it is for you. Yannick Tagan, pardon my French, was appointed the Consul General for France in Chicago in September of 2021. He began his career in the Ministry of Europe in the European Affairs in 2005. He worked in the Bureau of North Africa in the Middle East in 2007, and then focused on bilateral affairs for France and Egypt, as well as France, Jordan, and in 2009. He joined the French Embassy in Egypt as a press advisor. He then was posted to Brussels as counselor to the Near East and to the Near and Middle East as a permanent representative of the Republic of France and the European Union from 2013 to 2017. He returned to the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs in Paris in 2017, then became the Deputy Director of the Egyptian Levant region within the Bureau of North Africa and Middle East. He received diplomas from the University of Paris in International Relations and also from the Institute of Oriental Languages and Civilizations in Paris. Yannick lives in Chicago now. We welcome him to Minnesota. We thank him for this great weather. Thank you, thank you. And with his wife and 2 children. I yield to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don, for this very kind introduction. And I'm happy that I brought some warm weather and some sun to Minnesota. One of the last time I came, it was because winters in Chicago are too mild. I was promised very tough North American winters. So as it was too mild, I decided to spend my winter holidays with my kids in Minnesota, but in northern Minnesota, Callahan, Minnesota. So I'm happy to be here again today in Minnesota. I was telling to a couple of friends yesterday that I stopped counting my visits to Minnesota. I think this is the state of the jurisdiction I visited the most since I took over my position in 21. But I'm genuinely honored and moved today because it's a very special occasion to be in Bloomington with you all. For this very special tribute to you, Mr. Rasmussen. In a few minutes, I will have an immense privilege, the privilege to present to you, on behalf of the President of the French Republic, my country's highest distinction, the French Legion of Honor. And the reasons for which you have been granted this distinction make me feel even more privileged. Mr. Rasmussen, this medal and today's ceremony aim to mark France's eternal gratitude and recognition for your outstanding participation in the liberation of my country, France. Lieutenant Rasmussen, in August 1944, you were just 20 years old when you entered active service with the US Army Air Force, where you would serve as a navigator. I understand that the Air Force was not your first choice, but in fact you wanted to be a Marine. But on the day you were inducted, you were told there was no need for more Marines, it was already full for that day, so you were sent to the Army Air Force. Many years have passed since you left your family, your friends, and Minnesota, your home state, for your military training and service, but France has not forgotten. Lieutenant Rasmussen, your journey started in Nebraska in 1943, where you joined the cadet program and were sent to Hastings College. Then came California, where you completed with high marks an intensive pilot training program. And you wanted to become a pilot, but again, the Army decided otherwise, and this time you were sent to the Navigator school. So finally, after a successful completion of all the courses, in August 1944, you were transferred to Oklahoma for a training on B-17 Flying Fortress, most famous as a workhorse of the 8th Air Force's bombing programs. Once done with your military training, you left the US for England, and there you joined the 349th Squadron of the 100th Bomb Group, the famous Bloody 100th, early December of 1944. As an air navigator, you were responsible for guiding the bomber to its targets and returning to home base safely. So to do so, you were charting courses, determining positions, and also assisting with target identification. Accurate navigation was crucial to the success of the missions, and it was an extremely demanding position, considering that each run could last several hours in the air. And I've seen in your combat log a mission that lasted 9.5 hours. This also means navigating against attacks from anti-aircraft guns and Luftwaffe fighters, and to navigate through difficult weather conditions, which added a significant challenge to the operations. Your targets were enemy aircrafts, marshalling yards, road bridges, oil plants, naval installation, line of communication, as well as troop concentrations and harbor gun installation like in Royan and Pointe de Grave in southwest of France. Those strategic sites, located at the mouth of the Gironde estuary, were among the last pockets firmly held by the Nazis on the Atlantic coast. And to dislodge the troops gathered in heavily armed forts, a vast Allied assault by ground and air forces was launched in April 45, which you took part of. Mr. Rasmussen, with the 100th Bomb Group, you completed an impressive 32 combat missions from January until April 1945, totaling more than 250 hours flying. But one of the most satisfying war contributions occurred in May, when you and your group dropped food and supplies to occupied Holland to relieve the starving population. In October 1945, you finally returned to the United States, where you were honorably discharged a month later. Mr. Rasmussen, this recognition comes as we're approaching the 80th anniversary of D-Day in Normandy, and I was very glad to meet with people who will be attending the ceremonies. So I would like here to reference a recent speech of President Emmanuel Macron, which roughly translates to, "Let us never forget the lesson of courage and commitment given to us by our liberators, which enforces a sense of duty and must inspire us every day. These allies who came to die on our soil, on a land that for some they had never set foot upon, for the freedom of France and the values they shared with us." Mr. Rasmussen, thanks to your unfailing determination and bravery, you and your companions have restored hope to millions of people, hope that had been crushed by intolerance, violence, and the tyranny of the Nazis. You are part of the greatest generation, an exceptional generation of men and women who had put their ideals, their might, and their courage to the service of democracy and the dignity of humankind. For your outstanding service during the war, you have received many distinctions from the United States. But today, France wishes to honor you, as well as the memory of all those who have endured the war and all those soldiers who did not return home. Mr. Rasmussen, I told you you are a true hero. Thanks to you, I grew up in a free country, a country that has been living in peace for 8 decades, and it is the longest period of continuous peace in modern French history. As it has been reminded, the French-American friendship has profound and long-lasting roots, and they are deeply anchored within the Midwest and Minnesota, the only state with a French motto, "L'Étoile du Nord." This friendship has endured many centuries and outlived many political spats. And the French people will never forget what we owe you and all the American people. We will remain loyal to the legacy, the sacrifice, and the values of the heroes who liberated Western Europe. So, dear Mr. Rasmussen, I could not be more honored to present you today the Legion of Honor Medal. So, from the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you. I would like to stand, if you can, and I will have to continue in French.
Monsieur Rasmussen, président de la République française, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur. Félicitations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was truly humbled by all the wonderful things he was saying there, and I learned a little bit more about my history too. I kind of forgot some of the things that he was telling me about, so that was quite interesting. My first introduction to France, of course, was not a real pleasant introduction. We were forced to land in France about the 5th of January in the wintertime. The weather was so bad we spent 5 days in a tent in France in the snow and whatnot. It was cold. It was during the Battle of the Bulge when they had bad weather there. And the weather was so bad we couldn't get off the airplane couldn't get in the air again for the next 5 days. So we spent 5 wintry days in France at that time. That was in January of 1945 then. And I've been back to France at other times now under more pleasant conditions, more as a tourist the next time, which was more fun than traveling sometimes with the military. And one of the things that when I was down in France during the war, it reminded me that my dad had also been a member of the armed forces during World War I in France. And he had served over there as a truck driver, which always surprised me. Being a farm boy, I never understood how he learned how to drive a truck, so somebody taught him. And of course, trucks were much more difficult to drive back in those days than they are now, too. Anyway, so, and one of the things that I always kind of connect with our service and the service with France and whatnot is the poem that's out, in Flanders fields the poppies grow. And that reminds us that we're passing the torch then to the next generation. And I figure my dad had kind of passed the torch to me, and now I had passed the torch to the next generation. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Congratulations, General.
Thank you.
Thank you all again. Please join us for some refreshments.